I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming. And next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
It's getting cold out. Are you talking to us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of claims for payment.
I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Timothy Baker is next on here, and he is bringing future FEMA reimbursements.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
My name is Timothy Baker. I have a small consulting firm called Mohawk Consultants. Currently, I'm doing some consulting work with your county conservation. What I'm here today to ask is for you to consider putting me on a contract for the next disaster to cover the county to assist in any reimbursements. As you can see by the bullet points, I've been doing this type of work under other consulting firms since 2006. I am located, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I'm not sure for how you might want to look at it, I'm located in Central New York. I've worked throughout Central New York and Long Island. I've also done Florida. And this is the first time that I've been in the Midwest. A lot of my work is going into small communities in the upstate area and helping them out. So I understand small communities and your need to maximize and to get all of your reimbursement that you were eligible for when you have a declared disaster. That's what I do. I dig into the weeds as far as the regulations are concerned and try to make sure that everything that you are eligible for, you do capture and get reimbursed for. I try to keep my costs at a minimum. What I'd like to ask for the board to consider is for me to allow me to send you a proposal. It'd be very similar to the one that I have with the Conservation Department to look over and consider if you'd like to put me on contract. My hourly rate is $95 an hour. That encompasses all of my expenses while I'm within your community, except airfare for me to fly in here. I try to keep that as a minimum. Right now, even though that's in my contract with the Conservation Department, all of my airfare, thus I have eaten to come out here because I'm still doing some of these cold call type of proposals to other communities. At this point, I have one final project worksheet to finish up with conservation, and I, at this point, plan to be out of here this Saturday. I may come back in January to do a little bit more cold calling in the Cedar Rapids area. That is yet to be determined, but at this point, I'd like to ask that the board at least allow me to send the proposal to you for review and look it over and discuss it amongst yourselves for, like I said, for the next disasters. Hopefully, we would all like to see you not have disasters. A lot of what I do is not only write up the disasters, but work with your departments to see how you can make the facilities more flood resistant or disaster resistant in the hazard mitigation realm to try and strengthen things. Do you have any questions for me as I...
My question is, Roxanne, you do a lot of this yourself. Do you have any questions?
If it's just a proposal that he wants to send to you at this time on the board agenda, I would say yes, but before you would sign any contracts with any third-party consulting firms, since I am your local employed person who works with disasters and management, that you would consult with me on those contracts. There are a lot of FEMA guidelines.
Yeah.
There are a couple questions I would have maybe later for Mr. Baker and Wes on your contract to see.
And then Terry, you work on the roadside. Do you have any questions or?
Is things going to be more black and white? because there's so many questions about the right way to approach this. That's what we were running into. We did it one way and then they come in and say, no, this is the way we want it done. And so basically we wasted a lot of time.
We try to make it as black and white as possible. It's best when if you have a consultant, that they're here just prior to your kickoff. You want them to be called in after the disaster is declared to go through your damages and try to make a game plan on how you want to approach them, how you would like to bundle them and submit them to FEMA. In that sense, that's what I do, come in and sit down and coordinate how best to go forward with what you have and the damages you have. It's unfortunate, FEMA does go through a lot of rotation with their people, and you can start a disaster with one and finish with another. Having a consultant on board allows you to have that consistency from beginning to end. When the PW, when we propose the PWs, when we have them obligated, they send you the money, and then it close out to make sure you retain that money, that you have crossed all your I's and dotted, crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, excuse me. That's a big part of it, is making sure that at the end, you don't have to send back a check to FEMA. That's critical. And that's what I work to avoid. I make sure that as we go through it, as the road department or the conservation department would say that this is what we have to fix. Do we have the proper permits? Do we have the proper easements? Has everything been done to make sure that the eligible money you are after can be paid? We all know federal regulations are mind-boggling and deep, and if you don't do one thing right, they can come back and say, well, you didn't do this, and you have to ask permission. There's a lot of little nuances that we try to avoid by being upfront and getting that done. And if there is a change that needs to be done, we would write a position letter to the state for the state to present to FEMA before any other changes are made, just to make sure that that money is not jeopardized.
That's why we got involved, because I don't understand all that paperwork and, the proposal Tim gave us and the board, he gave a proposal to our board. My board understands that there's a lot of things that we don't want to have someone come back in later and find out that we've done something improper or wrong, and then we had to pay money back, and it's a lot of paperwork. I went through it in 2008, and it was my first year as a director, and it was pretty horrific to get through. So
I just to comment on a couple of things that dealing with FEMA, and I do understand when you're dealing with that, the regulations do change, but the bottom line is what you're saying is there's no guarantee. When you write these, we still have to follow FEMA regulations.
You have to follow FEMA regulations.
Excuse me, there's a
Oh, okay.
couple of things. So there are FEMA regulations, and we try to stay on top of those with the state also. There are some other things using consulting firms. There are a couple of things that I know and I don't know in Wes's contract, but there are some non-reimbursable costs that you're talking about, like airfare is not covered in that.
That's the only thing that's not
And there
covered.
are also, they look at time and equipment contracts very closely. They scrutinize those. So I would have to look at Wes's contract to see how it is worded in the reimbursement, because administrative costs are very limited on the FEMA side. I would also make a comment that we are not a resource-rich county.
Yes, I
And
understand. That's-
so even your fee
Yes.
to us is something that we have to scrutinize very closely to see if it's cost-effective for us. And those are just some of the comments just that I would make early on, because I just saw you on the board agenda and wanted to comment.
That's quite, that's very upfront, and I understand that. In the FEMA world of reimbursements, there are charges that a lot of consulting companies make. You have direct and indirect. Direct is the cost that can be recaptured on the PW, site visits, getting documentation from you, writing the PW. Those costs can be directly attributed to the PW and captured and reimbursed at the going rate. One of the things that is unfortunate for this state is that FEMA comes in at 75%, the state covers 10%, and the applicant, you, the sub-applicant, has to cover 15%. That's a big hit for small communities. It would be more fortunate if the state legislature would pound on FEMA to try and get their input higher than 75%. I've seen it done in other states. I've seen it done in New York. I've seen it done in Florida, California. They beat on FEMA until FEMA agrees to 90% reimbursement. But that's not going to happen for years down the road because FEMA's been stretched to the limit as it is. At this point, it's 75 and 10, and you're stuck with a 15. In my case, I try to keep my cost as direct as possible. That's where I sent Wes a progress report, and also on my invoice at the bottom, it shows the direct-indirect ratio of payment, and it's at 100%. Anything that I've done indirect, I've eaten for myself.
Also, those costs have to be contributed to that project worksheet, so you have made
Yes.
that very clear.
Yes, on my invoice, I'm billing 2 specific project worksheets.
Okay.
It's all broke down on what I'm doing and how I'm billing to it, and what backs it up with FEMA is the direct admin breakout sheet that shows exactly where those hours went for site visits, document collection, writing the PW, and so on. It is unfortunate that in the long run, let's face it, you're gonna still have to eat that 15% of my cost. But what I try to do is give you a better benefit by making sure that we don't let things fall through the cracks. Working with Wes, and if you look at my proposal and accept it, I would work with your other departments, mainly the highway, to make sure that all the equipment is properly documented so that when they go do use something, that if you're gonna take a Bobcat out, you've got to put it on a trailer and you got to tow it with a truck. Sometimes on the timesheet or the work log from the employee says, yeah, use Bobcat on such and such road. Well, I would like to come in and say, okay, I need you to, because I need it from them, because they are the employee that we're being reimbursed for, to say, pickup truck, trailer, towed Bobcat to road, work 2 hours, return to shop. Now I can capture all 3 of those pieces of equipment on the PW and get reimbursed for that. Those are the small things that start falling through the cracks, especially when you have inexperienced FEMA people coming in and helping you. Yes, they do want to help, they are good people, but they don't look for all the details that I do, because that's my job for you, is to look at the details. A small, quick example, if you allow me, I will send you a resume as well. I spent 18 years as a consultant for the Air Force. I was embedded in the research lab and worked with them. Because I worked for the government, it was a pain at tax time. I hired an accountant. I said, here's my paperwork, here's my business stuff, do it. 5 years into it, my wife goes, why are we paying him? I said, I'm paying him $350 a year, big deal. She's like, yeah, but it's $350, we should be saving that money. Okay. 1 year I sent him everything just like I always did. A month later, I sat down and I ran everything through TurboTax. Everything I had, he had, I ran it through TurboTax. His bill came back to me at $350, but he found me $600 more than TurboTax did. So he paid for himself in the long run. So I continue to use the man because that helps me. It alleviates my dealing with the IRS, and it makes sure that I capture everything that I'm entitled to. That's how I try to bring what I do to you, is by looking through. Let's face it, the Stafford Act was written by lawyers in Congress and their staff, and it's a gray zone. I try to stay on the gray zone to help you. FEMA will start the gray zone to help the federal government's bottom line. The gray zone is there, we can use it. We're not cheating, we're not doing anything unethical. We're just making sure that the book says that you are eligible for equipment reimbursement. We want to go after all the pieces of equipment you used. I like to be able to sit down and work with your departments because I have the time. I'm on contract for you, that's what I do. FEMA's going to come in, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, collect paperwork, and go back to their office or their hotel to do the job. I'd rather be able to sit in a back room. I don't care if you put me next to the equipment in the back room or next to the boiler. I need to set up where I'm close to you, close to your departments, and be able to get that information and go back and ask them questions if I have to make sure that every nook and cranny has been investigated and that we get back what you're entitled to. The contract would be a 2-year contract, and you don't have to pull you can let it sit there dormant. You could have a disaster and you could look at it and say, geez, we're gonna have one PW for $4,000. Tim, we're not gonna have you come out here for one PW. I would still be available for phone calls, probably at no charge, because just to make sure that it gets covered. But if you have a larger one, that's where I need to come in. I worked the Irene disaster in Schoharie County as a consultant with a small firm. I was there for 2 years, but they had a $50 million damage assessment, and we wrote over 200 PWs for them. FEMA had come in, they looked at one road. It was a lot of damage. They estimated at 1.8. I worked with the county engineer. The highway department said, no, this is not enough. We took FEMA back, held their hand, and pointed at every single spot. That PW went from 1.8 million to 5.1 million. It was getting back the money necessary to put the structure back to what it needed to be pre-disaster. That's what I look for, that's what I try. That's the benefit that I bring to the table for you. All I'm asking is to be able to submit a proposal for you to look at a month, 2 months from now, but I just would like to be able to have something, if you decide to do it, for the next disaster, so that you are ready, I'm ready, and you can just pick up the phone and say, Tim, get out here and help us.
You guys have any questions?
I don't think there's any harm into looking at a proposal.
Well, no.
I think that's, and getting, in January there, get every new board members and people that are affected, maybe a department head meeting, and discuss it openly and the benefits, pros and cons, and
Yes.
look at the contract. I don't think we should be close to it.
That's all I ask, is for you to read it and consider it.
You don't charge us for the proposal, do you?
No charge for proposal, no charge for me to be here today. I have a habit of getting involved in my communities. I feel very passionate about what I do and helping them out. I was fortunate, I went to a small town high school, Hancock, New York, and they had a flood, and I was fortunate enough to be assigned to that flood recovery. And the school bus garage got flooded. Got enough water up, there was 8 feet of water in there, it got up into the electronics of the buses. They wrote up an estimate, and said, we can fix the buses for $100 and some thousand. We argued back and forth. I said, but have you looked into the certification of the bus now? We went back to the bus manufacturer, said, if they rewire this, will you certify it? And they said, no, we will not certify that because it was damaged and repaired. We will not certify the electronics to work and be safe enough for those children. That was enough to trigger FEMA to have to replace all the buses. It's a lot of money for FEMA, but the safety of the children was more important to me than trying to save money or jockey back and forth. And that's what I bring to the table. It's my passion to do what's right for the community and get back what they deserve.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
No action on that. Next is Recorder's Monthly Report.
I'll make a motion to approve the Recorder's Monthly Report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is a change regular meeting date. And the reason we're bringing this up on is one is Christmas Eve and one is New Year's Eve dates. And if we don't really have anything pressing going on for those meeting dates, do we need to have the meeting date or just make the 17th the last meeting?
So far, I've not been contacted by any department head that needs anything after the 20, or after the 17th. Jessica's not here, so.
Yeah, she's right
Oh, there she is. You're hiding underneath the camera. Do you have a reason that it won't work?
No, Mindy's already sent out information to the department heads that said we were planning on not having any meetings after the 17th and paying claims on the 2nd. And as far as I heard back, that was well received and understood.
You guys want to make a motion?
Make a motion that December 17th will be our last meeting for the year. We will not have
Board meeting.
board meeting. We will not have the meetings. I'm going to change that. I'll make a motion that we will not have meetings on the 24th and the 31st. Because if we do have to have an emergency one, I would hate to have a motion say we can't. So we'll not have a meeting on the 24th or the 31st.
I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded that we do not have a meeting on the 24th and the 31st. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Last week we tabled the Skilled Iowa Agreement. We had a few questions they wanted to find out before we got out there, and it is back on the agenda today.
I think that our concern last week was having a short presentation and not having enough time to read through the material, and so we've had that time now. Had some discussions with people that we need to discuss. Do you have anything that you wanted to report on discussions, or?
I did make a few calls on it. Again, like Ron said, when something comes in the door, before your meeting, you hate to make a rush decision on anything. But I can definitely see why it's something that our economic development people want, because it does give a snapshot of what's going on in the community. I did talk to superintendents on it. Owl Falls, Alden has not been part of it yet. They have been contacted. And I don't want to put any words in their mouth or anything here, but just in visiting with them, it sounds like they will participate at some level. Their comment was the kids are tested an awful lot now for things, and having another test really has to be beneficial for them. And then the second part of that is funding. A lot of times stuff like this is brought to schools and then the funding's taken away, but yet you're expected to keep the tests going. And that, so they're approaching it cautiously, but he said some, again, not putting words, but some form of testing will take place there and get involved. So I do see an advantage on the economic development side, and I think the schools are going to be in it somewhat active. So I didn't find anything out there that was not a good thing. I found more positives than negatives on it.
So I'll go forth and approve the Skilled Iowa Agreement.
To participate in the Skilled Iowa.
Participate in this skill. Well, that
Was that a resolution, Nancy, or was that just
No.
So it needs to be a motion.
I'll make a motion. I thought I did, but
Okay.
sorry, I
You
guess
might
I
have,
didn't.
I might have missed it.
I'll make a motion to approve the Skilled Iowa Agreement.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Utility permit secondary roads.
I guess we don't have any.
All right. No roads?
No roads.
Did you ask Nancy? Sometimes she pulls one out.
I asked Daryl, and he
Okay.
left, so.
Okay. You contacted me yesterday about the Alden shed roof replacement bids,
Yeah.
and I'll just let you go ahead and tell us about it.
Well, first, PC&J Construction out of Hubbard did the New Providence shed last year for us. So I got estimates from them and K-Van, and looks like to me that it's about $1,600 cheaper to go with PC&J for the same work being done. If it's okay that I get the approval to start on it, it looks like that for 10-9, we could go ahead and have the fascia soffit done at this time instead of having somebody come back later and do it. And that's what, it'd be the same money with K-Van for less work, with no soffit and fascia done. So,
Which they were giving $4,800 for that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm getting at, Nick.
Hmm.
When you do the steel work, you know, like the rake and corner coming over the edge, it's the time
Right.
to do it is the fascia, unless you
Rake
absolutely
and
don't.
corner, you can explain. You can do it, can't you?
Yeah.
No.
I can order it done. But yeah, anyway, so that comes over on the fascia.
Okay. And our roof's leaking. It's bad shape. What do we got?
It's not leaking at this point, but the shingles are all curled and they're starting to come off the roof, just like the New Providence shed. So we're gonna end up doing it sooner or later anyway.
Remember how old those shingles are?
I'd have to look back on that, but they were supposed to be a 50-year lock tab shingle and they just don't.
Right when you said
last.
curling, we did our garage here, which seems like last year, but it was probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But same thing, you buy shingles thinking, you know, I'll probably have to do this once, maybe twice, and instantly the corners started rolling up to now it's just
Yeah.
a mess.
That was what we were running through, is the quality of the shingles were cheaper, So then we bought better quality shingles, the lock tabs, and we didn't even know them were around anymore, but they were supposed to be 50-year, and they last about 14, 15 years.
Doesn't happen,
Same
does it?
thing. No.
Yeah. And then you lose the receipt, so you can't.
Also, I always believe in, if we're gonna put a steel roof, we always put 2x4s down for the nailers, and a lot of guys eliminate that, and you see it in the roof by not doing that, so. And PC&J is doing that, so,
I ran insulation between my 2x4s
yeah,
when I did it.
yeah.
Deadens a lot of sound, plus keeps the heat in.
Well, I talked to Daryl about it quick for a little while yesterday too, and one comment on it. You know, Daryl, and you know, you guys have looked into closing some sheds or being more centralized with different sheds, and
Yeah.
you know, I think that'll be an ongoing discussion as we move forward over the next few years too. But this building in Alden is one that there'd be interest in. If they would move out of Alden or something different, I'm not saying they are, but
Right.
if that would go on to a sale by having a roof on it, I think you'd get your money back out of it, because there'd be a lot of people interested
That's what I believe.
in that shed.
Yeah.
Just the location, everything, it sets in a
Yeah.
good spot. So, and once your roof goes bad, then the building goes bad. So I don't think it'd be money. You know, if we keep
Wasted.
the shed, it'll definitely be worth it. And if you sell it,
I didn't know if that applied to us, but like homeowners, if you sell, you'd have to replace your roof before you sell it.
yeah,
So,
interesting point. I don't know. Yeah.
so would apply to the county for that, so.
Hmm.
I think you'd get your money back out of it.
Yeah. And again, not that we're closing it, but just
Right.
I don't think it's money would be a waste here.
You're happy with the work that they did in Hubbard?
Yeah, and also K-Ban wants 25% down, and these other guys, when their work's done there and approved, then they get their money.
Any questions, Ron?
No?
Might want to give it to them a little sooner than that, because I see their printer's broke.
Yeah, I know, you apologize for the rough.
Yeah, see that road down there? No. I guess I'll go ahead and make
So
that.
they're saving money.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we go with the low bid of RCJ Construction to move forward on the repair of the Alden shed roof.
Is that R or P?
I got RCJ, is that right?
PCJ?
Or PCJ, I'm sorry. Oh, it is. See mine? Okay.
It's that printer.
You know, I should probably wear my glasses, but I just don't do it.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Got anything else for us?
That's it.
Any other business? Hearing none, I'll ask for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned.